All right, let's talk. You've seen the news, you've heard the noise coming out of DC. The politicians are deadlocked, and that phrase we've all come to dread is back: government shutdown. Now, for a lot of the country, that's just another headline. It's political theater, it's something they see on cable news that feels a million miles away. But not here, not for Huntsville. For us, this isn't a distant political story. This is a kitchen table issue, it's a community issue, and yes, it's absolutely a local economic issue. Frankly, it's infuriating that every couple of years, our community has to hold its breath because of political games being played hundreds of miles away. Today, we're going to cut through that noise and we're going to break it down exactly what this manufactured crisis means for the Huntsville economy, for the finances of your friends and neighbors, and for, in my area, local real estate. We're not going to deal with hypotheticals. We're going to look at what has happened in past shutdowns to get a brutally clear picture of what's at stake. Hi, I'm Cameron Walker, and today I'm coming to you a little bit out of typical. I'm coming to you as a fellow Huntsvillian, as a spouse of a government employee, and as a small business owner who employs your neighbors, and as I'm also required to disclose an Alabama real estate broker. But my mission with this channel has always been to give you accurate, timely, no-nonsense information that you can use to make the best decision for you and your family. And today's video is about making sure our community is armed with the facts and understands the completely unnecessary damage this shutdown can cause. So let's get into it. First, we have to understand why a government shutdown is a direct economic threat to Huntsville in a way that it just isn't for other cities like Nashville, Atlanta, or Birmingham. Our greatest strength, our identity as the Rocket City, is also our greatest vulnerability in a situation like this. Our entire economy is built on what local experts call the three major pillars. Those are federal investment in Redstone Arsenal, NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, and the ever-expanding FBI campus. This isn't just part of our economy. In many ways, it is our economy. So let's talk numbers because they're staggering. Redstone Arsenal is a 38,000-acre federal installation that is responsible for over 90,000 jobs in our region. It contributes more than $36 billion to Alabama's economy, and the Huntsville-Madison Economic Chamber of Commerce puts it bluntly: about half of our entire local economy is a direct function of federal spending. So when that spending stops, it's not a sector-specific downturn, it's a systemic shock. And this isn't just about abstract economic data, it's about people. This is about our neighbors. We have around 21,000 federal civilian employees in the Huntsville metro area, and we have over 8,000 active duty military members. And then there's the group that's arguably the most exposed, the more than 16,000 government contractors who work on Redstone. When you add up all those groups, plus a few others, you're looking at nearly 100,000 people in North Alabama whose livelihoods are directly tied to that federal funding spigot, and every single one of them is being treated like a pawn in a political chess match. As one federal worker said during a past shutdown, they're trying to use people as bargaining chips, and it just isn't. They're right, it isn't right, and the consequences are very real. So let's break down what those consequences look like based on how long this political standoff lasts. Let's start with the best case scenario, if you can even call it that, a short-term shutdown lasting a week or less. In this situation, the primary damage isn't massive direct financial loss. It's what I'd call more of like a confidence. It's a sudden jarring injection of profound uncertainty in an economy that thrives on stability. And people react to that uncertainty immediately. For household finances, the key word is anxiety. Now, federal employees are guaranteed by law to get paid back after the shutdown ends. But let's be honest, that guarantee doesn't pay the mortgage that's due on the first of the month, and it doesn't cover the car insurance or the power bill. The local contractor said it perfectly when this shutdown was just a threat. They said back pay is not paying for employees' rent, mortgages, car insurance, or home insurance. So in the meantime, those things are just kind of left pending, and it's a real problem. So families are forced to immediately dip into their savings or put essentials on a credit card. It's a week of intense, completely unnecessary stress for these families. That stress immediately spills over into the local economy. When you're worried about when your next paycheck is coming, you stop all non-essential spending. During the 2019 shutdown, it was described as people going home, nesting, and trying to conserve resources. Local restaurants, retail stores, and service businesses feel that overnight. The dinner crowds thin out, the shopping stops, and the economic engine of our city just sputters. Now, in the real estate market, my world, a short shutdown acts like a giant pause button. And I've seen this firsthand. Federal uncertainty makes prospective homebuyers get cold feet. People who are about to make the biggest financial decision of their lives look at the chaos in Washington and go, you know what, let's wait. I had a client a few years ago who was under contract for a new home, and they had to delay their closing for months because the shutdown created uncertainty about whether or not they'd be moving here for work, or if they'd be moving to another state. Creates that kind of chaos. You also get logistical snags. Getting the IRS to verify tax transcripts for a conventional loan can slow to a crawl, and government-backed loans like FHA and VA loans, they see processing delays because of skeleton crews. These are manageable in a short shutdown, but they do add another layer of stress and frustration to an already complex process. But the most immediate and frankly the cruelest impact is on our military and civilian personnel who are in the middle of a permanent change of station, or PCS move. Department of Defense contingency plans are crystal clear. Most PCS moves are halted immediately. Now, can you imagine you've sold your house in another state, your belongings are in a truck, your kids are pulled out of school, and you get a call saying you can't move to Huntsville? You're stuck. It's a logistical nightmare for families who have done nothing wrong but are caught up in the crossfire of political dysfunction. And I should know, it happened to me and my family in 2019. My wife got her orders, and the government shut down the very next week. We are left adrift without any guidance on how the shutdown would impact her report date. After 5 or 6 weeks, the government reopened and we found out her report date had stayed the same. We only had a week to find a house because we needed 30 days to close on the loan. Enough about my personal situation. Let's look at how this escalates. What happens if the political posturing drags on and the shutdown goes past a week and starts creeping towards a month? This is where we transition from a massive inconvenience to a genuine, widespread economic hardship. That 35-day shutdown of 2019 is our historical blueprint here, and it's a grim one. At this point, the government contractor community becomes the epicenter of the economic earthquake. And this is the point that I cannot stress enough. Unlike federal employees, contractors are not guaranteed back pay. When the government issues a stop work order, their company revenue stream is cut off completely. This forces those companies, many of them small businesses, to furlough their own employees. And every dollar of those lost wages is a permanent deletion of income from our local economy. This is the primary mechanism through which a temporary political spat in D.C. inflicts lasting, irreversible economic damage on Huntsville. During the 2019 shutdown, some projects were delayed for months, creating a long-term cash flow and staffing crisis for these companies. And for households, after missing at least one full paycheck, the situation becomes dire. During that 2019 shutdown, Redstone Federal Credit Union reported a massive increase in its members seeking emergency loans and asking to skip payments on their mortgages and car loans. People are forced into debt just to keep buying groceries and keep the lights on. And this is when the social strain becomes visible. It's the ultimate indignity. Federal workers, the people who run our nation's most critical missions, are showing up at food banks to feed their families because of this stupid shutdown. It's a disgrace, and it's a direct result of political failure. The impact on Main Street also intensifies dramatically. During the 2019 shutdown, some Huntsville restaurants saw their revenues plummet by at least 35% as discretionary spending completely dried up. Now, in my world, the real estate market, that temporary pause we talked about, deepens into a prolonged market freeze. Buyer confidence is completely gone. The lending process, which was just slow at a week, now hits major roadblocks. Delays in processing FHA and VA loans become substantial, effectively locking out a huge portion of first-time homebuyers and veterans from the market. But here's the hidden dagger that many people don't see coming. A shutdown can cause authorization for the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP, to lapse. So why does that matter? Well, it's because federally backed mortgages in designated flood zones require NFIP coverage. A lapse in that program could halt an estimated 1,300 property transactions nationwide every single day, and any sale in a flood-prone area in Madison County would just stop dead in its tracks, and we do have a lot of flood zones here. And we also have to talk about the worst-case scenario, the unthinkable, a government shutdown that extends beyond 1 month. This is where we move from a severe crisis to a potential economic catastrophe for the Huntsville region. The damage stops being cyclical and starts becoming structural. And this time, there's a new, explicit threat that makes this scenario more dangerous than any shutdown we've faced before. And that's the memos from the White House's Office of Management and Budget that have directed federal agencies to use the shutdown as an opportunity to issue reduction in force notices, or RIFs. Now, let me be completely clear about what that means. In a furlough, it's temporary. You're sent home without pay, but you have a job to come back to. A reduction in force is a permanent layoff. Your position is completely eliminated. The idea that a shutdown could be used as a tool to permanently downsize the federal workforce at Redstone is an existential threat to the foundation of this city. In a long term shutdown, a localized recession in the Huntsville metro area isn't just a possibility, it's practically a certainty. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that the 35-day shutdown in 2019 cost the U.S. economy $11 billion, $3 billion of which was permanently lost. And for an economy that's as hyper concentrated as ours is, the local impact would be exponentially worse than in many other parts of the country. The contractor ecosystem that would already be bleeding out with a short-term shutdown would begin to collapse. Small and medium-sized contractors, the ones that form the backbone of our defense and aerospace supply chain, would face insolvency. They can't survive months without revenue. They'd go out of business, and that industrial capacity, that expertise would be lost for good. Now, for families, the financial strain would become a full-blown community crisis. After missing multiple paychecks, widespread defaults on mortgages, auto loans, and other consumer debt would become unavoidable. The financial stability of tens of thousands of households would be shattered, potentially for years. And this crisis would overwhelm our local safety nets. And worse, a prolonged shutdown would threaten the funding for federal programs like SNAP and WIC, which typically only have about 30 days of reserve funding. The failure of those programs would create a public health emergency on top of an economic one. In the real estate market, it would effectively collapse. Buyer demand would completely evaporate overnight. I mean, who's going to buy a house facing a permanent layoff? The pipeline of incoming federal and military personnel would also be severed. But a more dangerous dynamic would emerge, and that's an increase in supply amid that collapsing demand. As financially distressed homeowners face foreclosure, they'd be forced to sell their homes into a market that has absolutely no buyers. And that's the classic formula for a significant and painful price correction. That would wipe out years of equity gains for families across our community and create a negative feedback loop that could take a decade to recover from. And then let's not forget the bigger picture. A long-term halt to military transfers isn't just a logistical problem, it's a direct threat to our national security. As the Deputy Secretary of Defense has stated, a shutdown would damage national defense and impact our operational planning. And these critical missions at Redstone Arsenal would be tangibly impeded. It's a self-inflicted wound on our nation's defense capabilities, all for political leverage. Beyond these immediate economic scenarios, there are other more subtle impacts that can do long-term damage to the very things that make Huntsville so successful. Think about our talent pipeline. Our competitive advantage is their incredible concentration of STEM professionals. A shutdown attacks that directly. You have security clearance processing, which is essential for most high-level jobs, typically grinds to a halt in these scenarios. This creates a massive backlog that can take months or even years to clear. That stifles growth long after funding is restored. And all this just makes federal service a less attractive career option. After the 2013 shutdown, which came after a 3-year pay freeze, government found it harder to attract and retain top talent. When you're repeatedly treating your workforce like political pawns, the best and brightest, the engineers and scientists our economy is built on, start looking for more stable careers in the private sector. And that's a brain drain our area just cannot afford. Also stifles innovation. So much of the cutting edge research at places like UAH and Research Park is fueled by federal grants. A shutdown freezes the awarding of new grants and can disrupt payments for ongoing projects. During the 2013 shutdown, the NIH had to reschedule the review of over 13,000 grant applications. That's scientific discovery put on hold, and that's technological advancement delayed. So to recap the insanity, a short-term shutdown is a confidence shock that creates needless anxiety. A medium-term shutdown is a severe cash flow crisis that inflicts permanent economic damage. And a long-term shutdown, that's a potential localized recession, a catastrophic event that could structurally damage our economy, our housing market, and our national security. Now, the point of all this isn't to spread fear, but to demand accountability and to be prepared. Huntsville is a strong, innovative, and resilient city. The very engine of our prosperity, our deep and vital connection to the federal mission, is being weaponized against us by political dysfunction. I'm keeping a close eye on this, and I'll bring you any news as it develops. If you want to stay up to date on this and how it's affecting our community and even our real estate market, just hit that subscribe button. I'll keep you in the loop. Thanks for watching.